Sure. My name's Craig Jones. I have a fairly staid business, being in construction. So we talk quite a lot about trying to disrupt the industry, and recently we've done, this is a question for Glenn really, we've done a leadership rotation scheme for my direct reports, for all of them, not just one, based on coloured jelly beans pulled out of a bag is how we distributed the business, but that's another story. And it's been hugely successful. It's kind of really invigorated the whole team because their careers have kind of really opened up in what were probably quite traditional roles. But it's quite a risk to the business as well, and I'm quite interested to hear whether there's anything in hindsight and when you kind of go back and think about the breaks that you've had going into different parts of the business, whether there are certain risks that you would really try and focus on with that whole rotation scheme.
I think that the reality is there is huge risk. And you're not going to get it right every time. One of the things I think is that as a leader, when you're rotating your people, it's a bit the same as what Mark was talking about at the warehouse, where you describe clarity and you have frameworks and you can describe, I use simple language, what does success look like in this role, and agree on what some deliverables and outcomes are going to be. And particularly when someone is making a big change, and one that's going to be outside their comfort zone, is you can back them and sort of throw them in the deep end, turn around, walk away and come back and check in 2 weeks if they've still got their nose above water. But the reality is in the early stages, you as a leader are going to need to invest quite a bit in them, just making sure that their direction is under control, that the issues that inevitably will emerge, they're getting supported on. And that equally, it's not just you, that their peers who do have that experience and ability, they're linked up, so they've got someone they can go to for advice and support. So I think if you get those structures right, the interesting thing is every time you give someone an opportunity, in fact, I don't think there's been an occasion I can remember where if you set the guidelines right and you throw someone the opportunity and you back them, it's pretty rare that people will fail. You know, occasionally you'll get it wrong, but people, I think, are pretty aspirational, motivational people. If you pick the right ones, they'll go for it. And more often than not, I've been hugely surprised at their ability that has come to life that I just didn't even know existed. So I think be prepared to take risks as you are. I'd take my hat off to you. I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, Vince Hawksworth, Trustpower. Mark, firstly, it's good to know that there's another ex-British Coal management trainee successfully doing things in New Zealand, and I sort of echo your views on what that program was like. Look, I'm really interested in your comment about middle management and the task of making sure that sort of message up and down the organisation works really well. And I'd be interested in your views on sort of middle management development and what you see as the key success factors to get people on board in that part of the organisation.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think the frontline people are pretty straightforward. Frontline people get it. You know, they serve customers, they know what's going on. They just want some authenticity and support. I think the more senior people get it. The middle management is a tough role. You know, they're often described as a meat in a sandwich. And yep, you can help them with development programs. We've got, you know, our advanced management program. We've got frameworks, etc. That helps take it so far. Where we've got to, and what we've realised though, is that ultimately you've got to get inside their heads, and often the issues are more psychological. They're more where they put bounds around themselves. It's a phrase I've discussed. How do you teach, with my chief people officers, how do you teach wisdom? How do you teach judgment? And that's the challenge, is you can have all the frameworks, all the tools, but actually the applying them also requires an active will and also requires hunger, you said, you know, as well, and also requires some courage. And that's the ability to, what we're challenging ourselves with that is how do we encourage that more? And, you know, it's hard work actually. It's harder than, you know, especially in a larger organization. I think in the warehouse stationery and Noel Lehman it's been pretty easy. But it's certainly in the warehouse with a bigger breadth, is where the specialisms are deeper. And actually what's often made them successful is what stops them being any better, because they've been successful largely in their specialist areas through detailed technical management. And we've really got to the conclusion it's about their psychology and about us helping them with that. So I now am having regular coaching sessions with 6 people who are 3 down from me in the organization, but in critical roles. Organizationally, they don't report to me, they don't report to the person who reports to me, they report to the other person. But they're critical roles. And that's been highly beneficial, actually, you know, because I think it's encouraged them that, one, the time has been taken and put into them, but 2, it's actually helping remove, you think you said it's those sort of megaphone things. They interpret things in a way that's quite surprising to their boss or me or even their boss's boss. And so that direct contact, I think, has been very helpful in lots of ways. You know, to have that broader perspective that's outside of programs and outside of all that's important. But you know, largely people disempower themselves, I think. You know, and it's helping them be encouraged not to do that.
Lindy Shuttleworth here from APD. I'm interested in what you think are the challenges of creating boards in New Zealand that can work for the now and the future. Yeah, both of you.
I think that was yours, Mark.
I'm sure eye contact was on you there. I think it is a challenge. I think it's very difficult to, when you look at the time we give a board, you know, reading board papers and attending board meetings, what, 20 days a year? In a large, complex organization. You know, we clearly want a differentiation between governance and management, and that's important. But to give good governance, you need some understanding of the organization. Not to manage the detail, but to understand what's even being talked about in the breadth and size of it. And I do think there's a problem with the whole structure of the amount of time that they have in the business to be able to even get an understanding. So that when what is brought to the table really becomes just a management capture issue. Because you either back the CEO or you don't, because you haven't got enough knowledge of the business to ask the right questions and dig deep enough anyway, to be challenging enough. Now, you know, that might sound a little bit controversial, but I just don't see how you can do that in the current structures overall. It's not, you know, it's not a criticism of any board. They're all very well-educated, meaningful people. But if you put me, I don't know, on the board of an Air New Zealand or a company that scale and complexity, you do a bit of an induction, and then you're supposed to be sitting there in governance and adding to strategy from a different industry. I think there's a problem there. So I think there's worthwhile sitting back and saying, what are our expectations, which are becoming more and more on directors? Yeah. Is the time that's devoted enough? Is the remuneration enough? You know, I was famously quoted for something I said about executive pay remuneration, but director remuneration is awful. Yeah, for the responsibilities they're meant to carry. It's pathetic. And so I think there's worth a sit back and saying, well, if our expectations are this of directors, how do we structure that perhaps differently so that you know, there's a fair balance between expectation and reward and time to do that.
Right. Look, thank you, Mark. I think that leaves it on a really wonderful note because we've got after lunch our chairs who will be able to pick up those issues at the board table, just what happens at the board table. So can I, on behalf of everyone here, thank you both, Glenn and Mark, for a fascinating morning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Craig Donaldson, the CEO of Kia. 2 minutes on who Kia is and how it can help you and your business take on the world. So I've been a Wall Street banker for 25 years. What that really means is I'm a sales guy. And I've come home to run Kia, and we're all in sales, yeah? We're selling to our staff, to our investors, to our clients every day. So if there's one trick that I've learned about sales, it's about the power of your networks and the influence and reach that it can have. So the most exciting piece of all is New Zealand has a very large international expat network that you can all use. It's Kia, it's New Zealand's borderless nation. Of the 1 million Kiwis that are sitting overseas, 600,000 of them are connected to Kia. These are all the different online channels that we now have that you can utilise these contacts as part of your network. The very top slice of this network we call our world-class New Zealanders. You've heard from one of them this morning, and Roger, and Molly this afternoon. So we've been pleased to work with Conference to bring some of these world-class Kiwis that are absolutely punching above their weight for us all to talk to and hear their inspirational life stories. These are folks that have given and want to give of their time, contacts, expertise, and ability to open doors to help you and your business take on the challenges around the world. Some small examples of New Zealand companies that we've helped open doors to big global companies that Kiwis are working in. The service is free. Kia is a government-funded organisation to do exactly that. I'm going to leave you with an app that we've created in your phone, so whenever you go around the world, you can find Kiwis that can help you and your business succeed. Thank you.
Over 1 million Kiwis live overseas. Meet Ollie. He's one of them. Ollie's a 30-year-old entrepreneur. He's just arrived in San Francisco and wants to connect with New Zealanders on the ground who can help him break into the local startup scene. Or how about Ellie? Ellie's in her 20s and has just graduated from design school in London. She's finding it hard to build her network and is looking for events to connect with expats in her industry. Then there's Mark. He's a world-class New Zealander who's been living in Shanghai for 15 years. After selling his business, he's looking for ways to give back. Mark wants to help the next generation of Kiwis who dream of achieving big things overseas. Introducing the Kia app. The Kia app helps you find like-minded Kiwis, localised events and New Zealand-owned businesses wherever you are in the world. It's the app that connects Kiwis globally. The Kia app, available now on the App Store and Google Play.